Okay, so this is the kit that I've made up for the little Highland bags, but you can also sort of follow along and use your own materials if you don't want to get a kit off me. So what you basically get in this kit is a piece of Highland cow fabric, or as they say in Scotland, Highland coo. I live in Scotland, so I'm picking up the lingo, and I've given you far more than you need to make a bag. You've got a bit that is about 9.5 by 19 centimetres. You've probably got enough there to make a cushion as well, or you can just use the fabric for whatever you want to use it for. You don't have to make the bag. You also get the base of the bag, which is a 3x2 piece of scrap wood, and it's 3mm. So if you're making these bags yourself, you need something that's 3x2 with rounded edges and 3mm. You can use foam board or pieces of card stuck together. I tried the foam board and I didn't like it. Didn't sort of sit properly for me. I just didn't like it. I just like the wood. So the reason I started making these because I found 4 bases left over from the last time I made them and thought I might as well use them up, and now I've ended up with hundreds of the things again because I've just carried on finding bits of scrap wood and cutting them out. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, that's not perfect. You might get a bit that's not a perfect piece of wood, but as long as you've got enough edge to glue the fabric to, it works. So you're helping the environment by reusing things if you get one of these. You also get some little rivets. I've put in more than you need in case you drop some on the floor. They're actually nail art bits. They come from, I bought a load. There you go, you can just about see them, the light shining on the box. From the evil Temu, I'm afraid. And a piece of the leather lace, which is enough to do the shorter handles if you want to, like that, it's on the bag, or the long handle that goes inside the bag if you want to, you prefer to do that. So you can choose which way you do your handles. So that is what you get in your kit. And I'll just take the things that we don't need at this very moment, put them back in the bag so they don't get lost in the abyss that is my craft table. Now when you get the fabric, I've kept the freezer paper on it for a reason. A, because it kind of stops it fraying so much, and B, it makes it easier to cut out the bit that you want. Now I've also made myself a template. I've made it 12 centimetres by 5 down, but if you don't have a template, you can just measure it and cut it out, draw on the paper on the back and measure it. So I am just going to cut around this. I'm absolutely terrible at remembering to keep myself in shot. I am trying harder. There. So that's the bit you're going to use to make the bag, and that's the bit you've got left over, which is, you could make a cushion out of that very easily. You could also use some of this to make the handles. I'll show you a bag that I've used fabric for the handles on in a moment, and then just take the backing off. So you have a piece of cow fabric. One thing I should mention is when I was doing the printing on fabric video, I used this fabric and I kept it on a sort of a dull setting because I thought I liked it. But then I thought, I'll try the brighter setting, and actually the brighter setting, if it shows up there, I like it better. So in your kit you will get the brighter fabric rather than the dull fabric. Now it's already, you see, fraying a little bit around the edges, but don't worry about that. So what we're going to do is turn it over and fold it and finger press it and turn it back and smother one half of it with tacky glue, Alien's tacky glue, which isn't something that's provided. I'll show you the pot of glue in a minute so you know what you're looking for if you want to buy it. I would imagine any tacky glue works. I haven't tried it. I really do think that Alien's tacky glue should give me some sort of endorsement. I just love it. Sometimes I worry that you won't be able to get a hold of it. I don't know, there was an advert years ago where it said, I liked it so much I bought the company. My cultural references are really ailing me now. And then you just sort of line it up and fold it back over. Don't worry if it's not perfect. You can sort of squiggle it about a bit, which is what I'm going to have to do here. I might just... It gives you a bit of time to play with it, so just do your best. Make sure there aren't any wrinkles in it. Running up. And then you have a piece of fabric folded over, which is about 2.5 high, which is the height of your bag, and about 12 centimetres long, which is kind of longer than you need for the bag, but it gives you a bit of room to play with. And then you iron it on a hot iron, and you get kind of stiffer fabric that will hold better. And I made one earlier. I've lost it, so that's really annoying. My famous losing things thing is happening to me again. There it is. Here we go. So this is one I made and ironed. So you get, it's kind of still flexible, but it's, the glue fray checks it, and it just gives it a bit of oomph. If you try to make these with a single piece of this kind of thin cotton, I think it might be difficult. So then just kind of trim those edges a bit. Just take as little as you can off to get rid of those frayed edges. And because it's covered in glue and been ironed, it's now completely fray checked. So this just neatens it off. There we go. So there you have a bit of fabric for your bag. Now the folded over edge will be the top of your bag, and the cut edge is obviously the bottom. Now because you folded it over, one side you have upside down coups on. That will be the inside of the bag. But it doesn't really notice when you do this. I can't find the one that I've made earlier. Let me see, where are my teacup ones? There we go, there's one that I started making that's got teapots, and inside the teapots are upside down. But when you've got that on display with a few things in it, you don't notice that. And I just think it gives it a nice kind of lined look. And it gives it a bit of bulk as well, a bit of heft to it. So now's the time to get your piece of wood into play, which is the base of your bag. And you use your tacky glue. Here it is. Alien's tacky glue. America's favourite craft glue, apparently. And then you just spread glue all around the edge of the piece of wood, and you get glue on your fingers, which is, although I like Alien's tacky glue, I do not like getting it on my fingers. So I always keep a piece of cloth handy so I can wipe it off. So what I'll do now, a pair of old leggings come into play. And then what you want to do really is you want to try and get a nice cow in the middle of your design, don't you? The front of your bag. So kind of look for what the front of your bag's going to look like, and position your fabric along that long edge so that you've got the cows where you want them. And then just start turning it around. Now you will have too much fabric, so what you need to do is to start snipping some off, but be wary of snipping too much off. So it's come up like that. So now you're going to make the back seam. Julie Warren does a good video on these, but she doesn't do them in quite the same way as me, so I thought it was worth putting my 4th penneth in. It's come off a bit there, so then just put some glue up that back seam. That's probably a bit over excessive. Here we go. And then sort of line it up a bit. Yeah, you can see I've got far too much there, so I'm going to cut a bit off. It's just useful to have too much so that you can play with the front of the bag and make sure you get your design how you want. Well, look at that, I've made almost a perfect cow on that seam. I've never done that before. Oh, I'm proud of that. And then just check at the front to make sure that it's kind of lined up along that seam, and fiddle about with it if it isn't. And then what I do is I get a paper clip and just clamp it in place so that it dries. And that's the body of your bag. That bit there needs to come down a bit, doesn't it? Just keep pressing it a bit until it's taken. There you go. So leave that to dry before you start trying to fiddle about putting the handles on. And I will use the duller version to show you the handles. Now, I'll do both handles. Yeah, well, no. Let me just see where there's... Yeah, there's one that's already done with the handles on, but not the embellishments. Obviously a different design. So these short handles are about 7 centimetres each. So I will just measure roughly 7 on there. And then to make sure I've got them the same, I measure up against the other one. Like that. And then you cut, use decent scissors. You need to cut a little triangle actually in the bottom of each one. So just nip the corners off. So you get that kind of effect that you want. Like that. I think I'm getting slightly better at remembering I'm doing a video and making something at the same time, but it's not easy. If you hear any strange sounds from me, it's not me, it's this great big hairy dog I'm looking after that's under the table. So there we got two bag handles there, roughly the same. And then you just have to glue them on. I'm just looking for another paper clip. I want to clip them. Oh, here they are. In here. There we go. Some paper clips. So I get a new cocktail stick because that one's already covered in glue. So just get a little bit of glue, and when you've got a design like this, you can see really where you want the handles to be. Just go up either side of that cow, I think. There we go. Press it on, and if you've got glue oozing out, with the tacky glue, it's not that a big a deal. You can it dries pretty clear, so it's probably won't see, but I tend to try and pick off as much as I can. Get it off with it. If it gets onto the leather, don't worry, once it dries you can sort of rub it off. And then I'll use another paper clip just to glue it on. These leather straps, they don't glue on particularly easily. You do need to sort of clamp them on like that. And then get to the other side there on the back. So you can kind of see roughly where you are, eyeball it, so that you get a handle that's more or less the same along there. And again, just get rid of some of that excess glue. Ooh. There is a lot of fiddling around making miniatures, isn't there? That's just the nature of the beast. A lady called Pauline was saying she was trying to make underwear and was covered in glue. 12 scale underwear, I might admit. Okay, and then you just tack that back on there, and then just leave that to dry. And when that's dry, you can glue the next bit of the handle on, loop it round and glue it on there. I don't know if I've got one that's... this is a bag that's nearly finished. It just needs that one handle. And this is the one where you've got the handle inside the bag. So I will show you this. It's slightly more fiddly. It's the same. This is a string handle, a paper ribbon that I've just rubbed a little bit of glue on to stop it unravelling, because it's plied, it's 2 pieces. I just rub glue on them and leave them to dry and then use them for the handles. So that's another possibility for using a handle if you don't want a leather handle. So then you basically just go, if you want to do one of these inside handles, put quite a lot of glue on the bottom and then come up with less glue. Turn your handle round, stick it right to the bottom of the bag, and I quite often will put another great big load of glue on there like that. And then this can be tricky. If you're doing it with leather, you try and get the long bit of the paper clip along the edge of the string, or the leather I should say, to really clamp it down. But just make sure you're trying to, there you go, I've got as much of that paper clip on that handle down the bottom there as I can. Really push it in and clamp it down, and then leave that to dry. The final thing you need to do, so I can show you on this bag, is to just put the little rivets on, which is useful if you've got some tweezers. Use these out of this bag. These things are fairly nightmarish. They go everywhere. There we go. Now I've been using this glue called Dualette, again by Aliens, just because I had it, but I'm pretty sure it would work fine with the tacky glue or a little bit of super glue gel. But I usually use tacky glue for everything, but I found this in the cupboard when I was looking for something else, so I thought I'd give it a go. I thought, well, I've obviously bought it at some point, so I might as well use it. And let's get myself another cocktail stick if I can. Okay. Right, and then basically you just put a tiny dab of glue there and pick up your rivet and stick it on. Now if you've got a tweezers, it's a lot easier, especially if you're using the small rivets. I've given you, in the kit, you've got the bigger ones that I'm using here, and the smaller one, so you can choose which size rivet you want to put on. But just for a demo I shall use these ones. There you go, got 2 big rivets. And that, I think, is... Oh, I was going to say about the fabric handles, wasn't I? Yeah. What you'll have there is the leftover fabric. You can see on this bag here I've used some of that leftover fabric to make a handle. All you do is just cut a tiny strip of it. And use it. Now what I've done is what you need to do is use a bit of the excess of a bit that's been glued, not just a bit like that, because that's just a single layer, and as you can see it's already fraying. So you need to use a bit that's double over and glued in the same way you made the bag, and you've got enough there that you can double over a bit, double that bit over, take it off the paper, double it over and glue it, and then cut little strips of it out. And because it's a double layer with glue in the middle, which has been ironed, it fray checks it, so you can use it for the handles. That was probably as clear as mud, and I apologise for that. But if you have any questions, please let me know, and thank you for bearing with me. Bye.